everyone. My name is Chetna, and I'm excited to welcome you to the inaugural episode of CIO Chat, where I have this unfair luxury of chatting with some amazing CIOs. Now, before we get chatting, though, I wanted to share two of my passions with you: technology and yoga. In yoga, we constantly talk about us creating our own abundance. It's a key pillar of yoga where you move away from scarcity into abundance. So to me, it's interesting to see that very philosophy permeate into technology. We're now pivoting away from tech debt to building tech wealth. We're looking at the creation of the maximally valuable, not just the minimally viable. And this perspective, by the way, comes from Accenture's Tech Vision 21 that was unveiled very recently by Accenture's own Paul Dorey. And one key way to execute upon this, what I'm going to call technical abundance, is by focusing on your technical architecture stack, taking advantage of microservices, AI, your cloud options, basically allowing your business to leapfrog. Now, Accenture found that 77% of executives believe that their tech architecture is becoming critical to the overall success of the organization. Now, think about that. This makes the CIO role even more critical. So that said, our guest today, the CIO of Splunk, Steve McMahon, is all about this focus on the right tech architecture and the stack, and then some. Steve, thrilled to have you on our CIO chat series. Welcome.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
Excellent. So we're going to continue with this theme of tech stack. And I have personally seen this clarity of thought you bring while setting your architectural direction at Splunk. And by the way, I've seen this consistently. So can you tell us about your approach to setting that architectural direction and why you think those decisions are important to Splunk as an enterprise?
Sure. Thank you. And I guess you've seen me on my better days. But the way I describe it is you start with why an IT organization exists. And it's a simple question, but it's important. It's to help a company scale with efficiency. That's the reason IT people are hired and staffed. But with that mindset, there's a couple of really critical architectural attributes that lead to a company's success. IT departments need to be able to move quickly and work with simplicity. So architectural principles are fundamental to that. At Splunk, one of our architectural components is to use platforms like SAP, Salesforce, Atlassian, Workday, and ServiceNow to cover large portions of our business process. But the key is we implement those largely out of the box. I tell people that Splunk's software is special, but our business processes are not. So we need to implement those capabilities with that mindset. And we spent really the past 24 months undoing a lot of customization. And that shift was largely due to our architectural principles. So we think in planets, and the planets are the platforms I just mentioned, and the supporting applications are satellites. And those providers have spent a lot of money and a lot of time building in best-in-class process in those tools. And we think that we can implement them with very little customization because that allows us to then in the future move very quickly. It changes the narrative from which tools are better to what part of the business process is covered and how can we make that scale for success. And then finally, principles and technology direction are meaningless if you can't keep pace with the business. And that's really where methods like Agile and DevOps start to come into play. A waterfall approach was successful when a business was stable for years and change was avoided. Today, change is literally every day. 18 months ago, who thought that we'd all be working from our homes? So we had to a large degree, shift many of our plans. And I'm not saying we should avoid planning, but if we have a 2-year project with delayed ROI and an organization and an IT organization can't unlock those capabilities until a big bang release, that's incongruent with today's rapid pace of change. So fundamentally, if you don't have architectural principles that lead to scale and simplicity, you're never going to be able to keep pace with the business. And that's really why we think it's so important here at Splunk.
I love that. All of this directly impacts your speed to market and your customer experience. Perfect. So speaking of customer experience, Conf is Splunk's annual customer conference. And I attended the last one in person. I think it was 2019. You and I had chatted, Steve. We were talking about various aspects
Yeah.
there. And yep. And I tell you, I was blown away by the use cases Splunk's offerings can bring to bear. I mean, literally, it spanned all possible industries. Now, that kind of impact and reach on other people's businesses can be daunting, especially when it comes to security. So, what's your personal approach and perspective around security?
Well, especially with some of the things that have happened recently in the world, solar winds and other areas where they're state actors, security has to be at the forefront of everybody's mind. But my perspective is security has to be built in by design. If we're asking a developer or some person who's thinking about solving a problem to also think about security while they're building these capabilities, we're going to fail. So in my experience, that's why the concept of DevOps and using a CI/CD pipeline is so important, because security and instrumentation are just part of the deployment process. No one has to think, and it just magically happens. Some level of flexibility and choice is needed, but other things really need to be non-negotiable. It's not that employees don't care about security, they just have pressures like everyone else. So one of the key changes that has happened at Splunk is some of the acquisitions that we've made, like Signal Effects, Omnition, and a few others, that are really all about instrumentation around a DevOps mindset. And to me, those are critical because they embed security in our practices. But also, if you do DevOps right, you can actually make an IT professional's life easier and achieve security. So everybody's motivated to embrace the change.
Makes total sense. Security can no longer be an afterthought.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And instrumentation, I might add. Those two need to go hand in hand because they are both critical for the user experience as well as baseline safety.
Yeah. Yeah. Otherwise, we learn the hard way. Exactly.
Definitely.
So now, Steve, we're going to go to this section called Getting to Know Our CIO. So it's going to be 5 relatively rapid fire questions. So the first one is, one role in your career that taught you the most?
So I was fortunate enough to join Cisco's remote operations management organization about 10, 12 years ago. And in that context, Cisco had purchased a company that was unprofitable and was losing money. And we got a mandate to either make it profitable in 12 months or shut it down. And that I was part of the 5 leadership folks who were brought in. And it was really amazing to see all the aspects of the business. And when you have such a burning platform, you have to make decisions relatively quickly on imperfect information, but you get to see what are the knobs that you can tweak in a business and really have impact. And that taught me, I would say, a huge amount. It was risky because, frankly, if we'd failed, I don't know if I would have still been employed. But in the end, it was successful, and it was actually a lot of fun in the process.
Great. So the next question is a message you'd like to give to your CEO, Doug Merritt.
Well, this is a message less for Doug, but more for all the executives at Splunk. And this is something that someone mentioned to me the other day. We've hired more than 10% of our employees in the last 12 months.
Oh my
They've
goodness.
literally they've never set foot in a Splunk office. So it's absolutely paramount that the executives are very purposeful about living our culture and being mindful of the words we use, how we treat others, so that when we do get back into the office at some point, the folks who have never seen Splunk's culture in action know how to act and know how to operate. It's a situation I don't think we've ever experienced as large enterprise companies, because we've never had a place where there's a culture vacuum for a 12-month plus period. It's really interesting.
I think the others can take notes from that one. That's definitely a problem to solve. All right, your favorite way to give back to society?
This one is personal. So my son and I do a Meals on Wheels route every Friday. It's great because it directly impacts people. You get to talk with them, see how it's benefiting them. But also I get to spend time with my son, who's a senior in high school, and he's going to leave the house next year. So we get time together, as well as he gets to see just how fortunate we are, and that it's really imperative that you got to give back to society and treat others the way you want to be treated.
I do love that one. Ariana Huffington says, giving comes from a place of abundance. And while you were
Mhm.
saying that, it made me realize that you and your son feel abundant while doing that as well.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
brilliant. Your favorite sport or activity?
So I mentioned my older son. I have two boys. One is a senior, one is a sophomore in high school, and they are both on the crew. So they row, as well as they do a fair amount of road cycling. So given that, I'm spending a lot of time on the bike, as well as I was actually on the crew way back when, a long time ago. So we share that together. It's good father-son time.
Wonderful. And then the last rapid fire question is innovation or diversity?
I would actually say innovation and diversity. So I look at this from a particular point of view. Most people think about diversity just purely as someone's orientation or the color of their skin or some physical attribute. I also, those are true, but I also see diversity as a person's experience, their belief system, the way they approach a problem. If you have different people with different perspectives, they're going to bring a novel approach to a problem, which frequently is going to lead to a novel solution. And to me, that's really innovation. So making sure that people have the time and the space and really the patience to have a diverse view of the world is really something that to me is critical to lead to innovation. So I think you have to have both to be successful. Everyone who approaches the same thing in the same way is just going to yield more of the same.
Yeah. I like how you say that, basically you're saying one fuels the other.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So, since we're talking of innovation, I'm going to jump to our last chat topic. So, I was reading this Harvard Business article, a business review article, and it's called The Hard Truth About Innovative Cultures. And it states that tolerance for failure does not equal to tolerance for incompetence. Google Glass, Amazon Fire Phone, these are all examples of failures by some amazing innovators. So, in your organization, Steve, how do you balance that push for innovation? And it's okay to fail fast while
Mhm.
ensuring you not only attract but retain competent individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the mindset or the mantra of it's okay to fail fast has actually become almost a broad brush. I prefer take risks where the rewards could be higher than the cost of failure. So do the calculation to figure out, can we take a risk in this context, or do we need to follow a set path? Sometimes failure is catastrophic, so taking a risk is inappropriate. The key that comes as a part of that is really solid communication so that people have an understanding of where we're coming from and why we're taking a risk. Just a good, simple example, we had a leader say, hey, we're going to try to upgrade an application and a tool with a new method while a higher priority project was actually ongoing. It may fail. We may run into code contention and we might have to actually abort this, but we're going to try it. And if it's successful, we can go live in 30 days. Everyone knew that this was a risk. Now, fortunately, it actually was successful and we were able to release, but they knew that the risk was if it failed, we were going to have to wait 120 days. But because everyone had an understanding of the potential and the risk and the benefits of it, it actually was well bounded and was a place where we were willing to take a strategic risk. And that's really what we try to instill in people is be smart about where you're going to take a risk, communicate it, and be specific and overt about it. And if it fails, that's okay, because we've been very specific about how we're going to approach this and why it might work or not work.
That's excellent. And I tell you, from personal experience, I can comfortably say that you have built a team that's very balanced in this realm. So, that really does show. So, Steve, it was a pleasure talking to you today. I really appreciate the insights, and that you kicked off our CIO chat series. So, thank you for
Yeah.
that.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate the opportunity. It's been great.
Wonderful. So there we have it. Just like in yoga, where the mind and body are inseparable, in our corporate world, business strategies and technology strategies are becoming inseparable. So whether you're talking about technology stack or you're talking about security or innovation, this holds. And therefore, as Accenture's Tech Vision puts it, in today's world, there is no leadership without technology leadership. So thank you for tuning in. Until our next CIO chat, be well and namaste.